I loved the conversation last week on the naming conventions for PC settings. I think about this in terms of Coca-Cola. RC or any off-brand cola might taste exactly the same as Coke, but to the consumer, the branding of Coca-Cola bottle improves the flavor. Why not do the same with PC settings? Low as an option a user can select seems like bad branding. Why give an option to select something that affirms in the consumer's mind that they're experiencing something subpar? A suggestion: optimize standard for low, standard, medium, enhanced, high, future proof, very high, future proof again. Oh, wait, future proof max, ultra. Okay. So this is something I think, Alex, we thought about a lot. We know companies like Crytek thought about a lot.
Yes.
So famously, Crysis was a great example of this because the original Crysis had low settings. People went nuts over this because the game was very heavy. When they did Crysis Warhead, though, I think they changed all the settings. So like there was like gamer and hot, like they renamed everything so that the lowest possible setting didn't seem low. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure it actually makes that much of a difference because fundamentally you're either going to have good performance or you're not. And if you're going to the lowest setting, it is still kind of the low setting. And it's not, you're not buying a settings menu, right? You're selling the game, not the settings menu. If a game is unoptimized, but they call like the low settings like something cute, it's not going to make a difference to users. But I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
I mean, well, I would love for that to be the case, John. I think you're thinking very highly of someone who just opens up a graphics menu and shoves things to ultra. I actually do think there is a psychological component to graphical menu options, as much as I wish there weren't one. I wish people would look at the settings and start reasonably thinking about these things, but they don't. So I actually do think, as much as it is an appeal to just vanity and all these things, I think maybe we should start coming around to this idea, as much as it pains me that we call the low settings, this is actually a pretty okay optimized standard, optimized medium.
Yep.
Because most games, low settings, unless they're scaling to like Potato Steam Deck, they don't actually look ugly as sin these days. That was the thing of the past. Now the graphics in games are good enough from a base level, since they are targeting things like Xbox Series S, that they look all right. I think this maybe has a place. Future proof. Future proof. I don't know if you need to call it future proof. You could call it something very intense other than enhanced. But I think what the biggest thing to do is that the first time an option is clicked that goes above the and beyond the pale, where you're talking about like 5090, 5080 class GPUs, is that you really should just do a full screen warning at that moment. Beep. This option is meant for future hardware and not for your lowly GTX 1060, right? And in which case, people would then realize that they are doing things that they maybe shouldn't do. A general thing that I think should happen in menu options in general is that we have an incredible ability to micro benchmark a GPU when a game is starting in terms of VRAM, available VRAM from Windows. There really need to be less options that allow users to hang themselves with their own rope. And I think texture settings really need to go the way of the dodo. There's almost no reason to give people texture settings anymore in the era of virtual textures and streaming caches and direct storage.
Right.
Way too often people will put those things up higher than they should be, and they get stuttery, bad experiences, and they kind of wonder why. Where I think a new consumer mindset there could be, the game is automatically adjusting them, and these are the textures that the game gives me. And then we decide whether they're reasonable or not. But I think a lot of users don't know that. And it's like a really big mystery box setting. And the tools that developers give people in their menus are not nearly informative enough. So I would like to see those go away.
Wow. I kind of liked Epic's approach to this all the way back with Unreal Tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Where selecting the highest settings, you would get the nice audio file playing, holy shit,
Yeah. I still
to
think that's
denote that.
incredible.
I think that's great because like
Man.
it's funny, but it also denotes like, okay, you're doing something ridiculous here, right? Like, it's
Man,
like, oh yeah, these are very high settings.
it's just such a completely different epic than we see today, though. Like
They would never,
they
ever,
would never
ever
even
do anything
dare.
like that.
In Fortnite.
Not in a million years.
No.
Not in a million
No.
years would they do it now.
Yeah.
I miss that epic a lot. I don't know, Oliver, did you have any thoughts on this?
I don't like the idea of making PC settings like even more inscrutable potentially because I find PC settings hard to navigate to begin with, unless, as is the case in most games, I can just like ramp everything to maximum and just have a good experience or close to maximum.
Right.
But I do like the idea of marking off the very highest end settings preset potentially with a bit of like yellow crime tape there. I like the approach that Ubisoft Massive took in Avatar, where they marked it off as unobtainium, and indeed in the initial release you had to like put in some kind of command to get it, right?
Yeah.
You didn't get them by default.
Max unlock settings,
Some kind
dash
of launch
max unlock
option.
settings.
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
But I do like the idea of having future-proof settings, or calling it maybe a future-proof setting, because then it really communicates like this is not meant for your high-end hardware today. It's for you in 5 years. When you have an even higher end GPU, that's when you go back to the setting. But in general, like, oftentimes with those really high-end settings presets, you're only getting marginal improvements. Now, there are some differences, like in games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, like Alex pointed out in his piece in that, the ultra settings is actually not that meaningful in that title, and indeed the ultra settings is pretty achievable. But in a lot of games, it's just like really marginal improvements that don't actually make that great of a difference, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I don't love, though, is when you have a game that just implements those generic Unreal Engine settings, where it's the same set of settings with the same epic max setting, and it just feels like there wasn't any thought poured into like how these actually affect the experience. And I think getting settings that are at least that have a tangible, obvious experience or impact on your experience is super important. And the games also, of course, the ones that really show this to the players best as possible, whether through screenshots, little meters, utilization bars, anything to give you a better idea of like why you would want to touch this in the first place. Because it's really not like it used to be, where there's like necessarily a gigantic obvious difference when you mess with these settings.
Mm-hmm.